Okay, we're going to be looking at a listening from IELTS Book 10. This is test number 2 from that book. And as usual, I don't know what the answers are. I've never seen these questions as well. So the idea is that I will be looking at the test the same way that you are. And let's go through the test together, and then perhaps we can get to the same answers at the end. So remember, the whole point of this is to see if you are able to do it in the same time frame that you would have in the real exam, and that's the time frame that I've given myself. So as you can see here, this is on YouTube. It's freely available from somebody called Susanna Ali. She put it up for us. So it's 27 minutes. And remember, in the normal test, you would have an extra 10 minutes at the end of the test to move your answers on to an extra an answer sheet, so you are able to write on the question paper, but you've got an extra 10 minutes at the end to move your answers across. Okay, so I've got the question paper here, and let's start with the listening as if it's in the real exam. So let's go.
Test 2. You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Section 1. Section 1. You will hear a man interviewing a woman in the street about her use of transport.
Okay, so
first, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5.
Okay, so don't waste the time listening to the examples. Go beyond number 1 to 5. You should be able to look at all of them. So she said, talking about a survey about transport, public transport. Her name is Luisa. It looks like it could be a Portuguese or a Spanish name, so you're listening for an unusual surname. You're looking probably for a number here, and also a number with a few letters. British postcodes have those both. A job, occupation.
You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Okay, so obviously the example is already done.
Excuse me?
Yes?
I wonder if you could spare a few minutes to do a survey on transport. It won't take long.
No, that's fine.
Oh, lovely. The survey is on behalf of the local council. They'd like to know about what transport you use and any suggestions for improvement. Can I start by asking you how you travelled to town today?
Sure, I came on the bus.
Okay. Now, let's have a look at this. Reason
the
for
woman
visit to
travelled to town by bus, so bus has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time.
More frequent.
Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Excuse me?
Yes?
I wonder if you could spare a few minutes to do a survey on transport. It won't take long.
Let's move down.
No, that's fine.
Oh, lovely. The survey is on behalf of the local council. They'd like to know about what transport you use and any suggestions for improvement. Can I start by asking you how you travelled to town today?
Sure, I came on the bus.
Great. Now, can I get a few details about yourself?
Okay.
What's your name?
It's Louisa.
Yes?
Hardy.
Can you spell that, please?
Yes, it's Hardie.
Oh.
Great, thanks. And can I have your address?
It's 19 Whitestone Road.
Oh, right, I know that area. It's Bradfield, isn't it?
That's right.
Is the postcode GT7?
It's actually GT8 2LC.
Great. And could I ask what your job is? Are you a student?
I've actually just finished my training. I'm a hairdresser.
Oh, right. And one more question in this section. What is the reason for you coming into town today?
Actually, it's not for shopping today, which would be my normal reason, but to see the dentist.
Right. Thanks.
See the dentist.
Before you hear the rest of the interview, You have some time to look at questions 6 to 10.
Okay, now you can see I've just made a mistake here to go to the and then see the. Doesn't make any sense. Number one problem, and obviously number two here is only one word or a number. So be careful with this. Suggestions for improvement.
Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Now, in this last section, I'd like you to give us some ideas about the facilities and arrangements in the city for getting to and from work. Any suggestions you have for improvements?
Well, something I've thought about for some time is that when I do walk and I'm doing a later shift, I think the lighting should be better.
Yes, good point.
And of course, I think it's a real shame they've been cutting down on the number of footpaths. They should have more of those. Then people would walk more.
Yes, right.
And I don't think there are enough trains. That's why I don't use them. You have to wait so long.
Thanks. And finally, I'd like to ask your opinion on cycling. As you may know, there's a drive in the city to get more people to cycle to work.
Right.
But we realise that there are things which the council, but also employers, might do to help encourage workers to cycle to work.
Yeah. Well, I have thought about it, and where I work there are no safe places to leave your bikes.
OK.
And also, I'd have to cycle uphill, and on a hot day I'd arrive at work pretty sweaty, so I think I'd need a shower somewhere at work.
Right.
And I suppose the last thing is that I wouldn't be all that confident about cycling on such busy roads. I think I'd like to see you offering training for that. You know, I'd feel a lot better about starting if that was the case.
Well, that's very helpful. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. Bye.
Okay.
That is the end of section 1.
One.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
So you've got 30 seconds. If you're worried about that, go and have a look, but I don't think I'm upset about anything there, so I'm going to carry on. Now, this is about new city developments. Choose correct letter A, B, or C. The idea for new city came from. Okay, now these type of questions, I never look at the answers. I only look at the important parts. So the idea came from the new developments.
Now turn to section 2.
What's unusual about the pool? Newspapers worries about.
Section 2. You will hear a woman called Alice Bustle talking on the radio about the Dolphin Conservation Trust, an organisation which tries to protect dolphins. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15.
So 15, so that's all of them there. So, which feature is related to each of the following years? Which feature? Okay. Okay, so we're going to listen out for these words. Ancient forts. Okay.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
I think there's a mistake there, but we'll soon see why they mean 15.
Today we're pleased to have on the show Alice Bustle from the Dolphin Conservation Trust. Tell us about the trust, Alice.
Well, obviously its purpose is to protect dolphins in seas all...
Okay, for some reason the the audio that has been uploaded by Susanna Ali does not correspond with the audio that goes with this book. So we'll be listening to this text, track number 2.
Section 2. You will hear... Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 14.
Good morning. I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to say a little about 2 exciting new developments in the city: the Brackenside open-air swimming pool and the Children's Adventure Playground in Central Park. As many of you may know, the idea for these initiatives came from you, the public. in the extensive consultation exercise which the City Council conducted last year. And they have been realised using money from the SWRDC, the South West Regional Development Commission. First of all, Brackenside Pool. As many of the older members of the audience will remember, there used to be a wonderful open-air pool on the seafront 30 years ago, but it had to close when it was judged to be unsafe. For the design of this new heated pool, we were very happy to secure the talents of internationally renowned architect Ellen Wendon, who has managed to combine a charming 1930s design, which fits in so well with many of the other buildings in the area, with up-to-the-minute features such as a recycling system, the only one of its kind in the world, which enables seawater to be used in the pool.
Okay.
Now, there's been quite a bit of discussion in the local press about whether there would be enough room for the number of visitors we're hoping to attract, but the design is deceptive, and there have been rigorous checks about capacity. Also, just in case you were wondering, we're on schedule for a June the 15th opening date, and well within budget. A testimony to the excellent work of local contractors Hickman's. We hope that as many people as possible will be there on June the 15th. We have engaged award-winning actress Coral White to declare the pool open, and there'll be drinks and snacks available at the poolside. There'll also be a competition for the public to decide on the sculpture we plan to have at the entrance. You will decide which famous historical figure from the city we should have.
Okay.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 15 to 20.
Okay, so we briefly had a look at that already. Okay, I think I can do that. Right, this is section 3, which two hobbies with very interested as a youth. 2 hobbies. Okay, let's go back here. Okay, water is ice and snow, jewels.
Now listen and answer questions 15 to 20.
And now, moving on to the Central Park Playground, which we're pleased to announce has just won the Douglas Award for Safety. The news came through only last week. The unique design is based on the concept of the global village, with the playground being divided into 6 areas showing different parts of the world, each with a representative feature. For example, there is a section on Asia, and this is represented by rides and equipment in the shape of snakes, orangutans, tigers and so on, fauna native to the forests of the region. Moving south to the Antarctic, we couldn't run to an ice rink, I'm afraid, but opted instead for climbing blocks in the shape of mountains. I thought they could have had slides for the glaciers, but the designers did want to avoid being too literal. Then on to South America, and here the theme is El Dorado, games replicating the search for mines full of precious stones. And then, moving up to North America, here there was considerable debate. I know the contribution of cinema and jazz was considered, but the designers finally opted for rockets and the International Space Station. Eastwards to Europe then, and perhaps the most traditional choice of all the areas, medieval castles and other fortifications. Then last but not least, moving south to Africa, and a whole set of wonderful mosaics and trails to represent the great rivers of this fascinating and varied continent. Now, the opening date for our global playground is the 10th of July, and again, we'd love to see you there. So, make a date and come and see this magnificent, original new amenity right in the heart of the city.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
2 reasons why I want to live in an island. 2 reasons to live in an island. As a youth. Possible contribution.
Now turn to section 3.
Let's quickly go to section 3.
Section 3. You will hear two anthropology students called Victor and Olivia discussing their joint presentation about a Norwegian explorer called Thor Heyerdahl. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24.
Okay, those ones there, but let's go carry on here. So 6. Notice I'm not looking at the options because they will distract you. Speakers agree the main reason.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
Right, well, for our presentation, shall I start with the early life of Thor Heyerdahl?
Sure. Why don't you begin with describing the type of boy he was, especially his passion for collecting things?
That's right. He had his own little museum. And I think it's unusual for children to develop their own values and not join in their parents' hobbies. I'm thinking of how Heyerdahl wouldn't go hunting with his dad, for example.
Yeah, he preferred to learn about nature by listening to his mother read to him. And quite early on, he knew he wanted to become an explorer when he grew up. That came from his camping trips he went on in Norway, I think.
His mother
No,
went to him.
it was climbing that he spent his time on as a young man.
Oh, right.
Oops.
After university, he married a classmate, and together they decided to experience living on a small island to find out how harsh weather conditions shaped people's lifestyles.
As part of their preparation, before they left home, they learnt basic survival skills, like building a shelter. I guess they needed that knowledge in order to live wild in a remote location with few inhabitants, cut off by the sea, which is what they were aiming to do.
An important part of your talk should be the radical theory Heyerdahl formed from examining mysterious ancient carvings that he happened to find on the island. I think you should finish with that.
Okay.
Before you
I
hear
must
the
admit I
rest of the
didn't hear.
discussion, you have some time to look at questions 25 to 30.
Did to formulate a new theory, maybe that's, I heard that. Okay, I messed up there. Okay, later life is impossible due to the main reason for his raft journey. What was most important to him about the journey? Why did he go to Easter Island? Greatest influence, and that's Olivia's opinion, not her colleague. Oh, so what criticism did they take? Okay. Let's carry on down. So future management.
Now listen and answer questions 25 to 30.
All right, Victor, so after your part, I'll talk about Thor Heyerdahl's adult life, continuing from the theory he had about Polynesian migration. Up until that time, of course, academics had believed that humans first migrated to the islands in Polynesia from Asia in the west.
Yes, they thought that travel from the east was impossible because of the huge empty stretch of ocean that lies between the islands and the nearest inhabited land.
Yes, but Heyerdahl spent ages studying the cloud movements, ocean currents, and wind patterns to find if it was actually possible. And another argument was that there was no tradition of large shipbuilding in the communities lying to the east of Polynesia. But Heyerdahl knew they made lots of coastal voyages in locally built canoes.
Yes, or sailing on rafts, as was shown by the long voyage that Heyerdahl did next. It was an incredibly risky journey to undertake. Sometimes I wonder if he did that trip for private reasons, you know, to show others that he could have spectacular adventures. What do you think, Olivia?
Well, I think it was more a matter of simply trying out his idea, to see if migration from the east was possible.
Yes, that's probably it. And the poor guy suffered a bit at that time because the war forced him to stop his work for some years.
Yes. When he got started again and planned his epic voyage, do you think it was important to him that he achieve it before anyone else did?
I haven't read anywhere that that was his motivation. The most important factor seems to have been that he used only ancient techniques and local materials to build his raft.
Yes. I wonder how fast it went.
Well, it took them 97 days from South America to the Pacific Islands.
And after that, Heyerdahl went to Easter Island, didn't he? We should mention the purpose of that trip. I think he sailed there in a boat made out of reeds.
No, that was later on in Egypt, Olivia.
Oh, yes, that's right.
But what he wanted to do was talk to the local people about their old stone carvings and then make one himself to learn more about the process.
I see. Well, what a great life. Even though many of his theories have been disproven, he certainly left a lasting impression on many disciplines, didn't he? To my mind, he was the first person to establish what modern academics call practical archaeology. I mean that they try to recreate something from the past today, like he did with his raft trip. It's unfortunate that his ideas about where Polynesians originated from have been completely discredited.
Yes. Right, well, I'll prepare a PowerPoint slide at the end that acknowledges our sources. I mainly used The Life and Work of Thor Heyerdahl by William Oliver. I thought the research methods he used were very sound, although I must say I found the overall tone somewhat old-fashioned. I think they need to do a new, revised edition.
Yeah, I agree. What about the subject matter? I found it really challenging.
Well, it's a complex issue.
I thought the book had lots of good points. What did you think of the illustration?
Okay, so future of management, section 4.
That is the end of section 3.
One word only.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Okay. God. Okay, so business markets, future management, greater. Something about companies, power, large.
Now turn to section 4. Section 4. You will hear a business student predicting how management might change in the next few years. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40.
Increase in power of large sampling companies, rising costs in certain countries, external influences on businesses, more discussion with more. Okay. On a particular. This is going to be a tricky one. Businesses may need to offer hours that are. Okay, increasing need for managers to provide good.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Okay, let's go down.
Well, I've been talking to managers in a number of businesses and reading surveys about the future of management. And what I'm going to present in this seminar is a few ideas about how the activity is likely to change in the next 10 years. It isn't a scientific statistical analysis, just some ideas for us to discuss. One area I want to mention is business markets, and I'm sure a really significant development will be a major increase in competition, with companies from all around the world trying to sell similar products. Consumers will have much more choice. For instance, food products sold in Australia might be manufactured in the USA, China, Finland, and dozens of other countries.
Multinational.
At the same time, mergers and takeovers mean that governments are actually losing power to major global corporations. We can probably all think of companies that exert a great deal of influence, which may be good for consumers. A third point I want to make about markets is that in the rapidly expanding economies, such as India, China, Brazil, and Russia, demand is growing very fast. This is putting pressure on resources all over the world.
Growing demand.
I think businesses are becoming more open to external influences. In particular, companies are consulting customers more and more before making their business decisions. Companies are finding out what they want and providing it, instead of making products and then trying to sell them, which is the model of years ago. Another influence is that concerns about the environment will force manufacturers to extend product life cycles to reduce the amount of pollution and waste. And, in some cases, regulation will need to be strengthened. Many societies are much more fluid and democratic, and the structure of companies is changing to reflect that. I think we're going to see a greater emphasis within companies on teams created with a specific project in mind. And when they're completed, the teams will be disbanded and new ones formed. More and more people see work as simply one part of their lifestyle, and not the most important one. And as the workforce is shrinking in some countries, businesses are having to compete for staff instead of being able to choose among a lot of applicants. Typical examples that will attract and retain staff are traditional ones like flexible hours and, something that has been made possible by advances in technology, remote working, with people based at their home, abroad, or almost anywhere they choose. Management styles will almost certainly continue to change. Senior managers will require a lot more than the efficiency that they've always needed. Above all, they'll need great skills in leadership so that their organization can initiate and respond to change in a fast-moving world where they face lots of competing requirements and potential conflicts. In most of the world, the senior managers of large businesses are mainly men in their 50s and 60s. The predominant style of management will almost certainly become more consultative and collaborative, caused, above all, by more women moving into senior management positions. Many of the changes are influenced by developments in the wider economy. The traditional emphasis of business was manufacturing, and of course the service sector is very important. But we shouldn't overlook the growing financial contribution of IP, that is, intellectual property. Some books and films generate enormous sums from the sale of related DVDs, music, games, clothes, and so on. Another point I'd like to make is that although I've been talking about companies, one trend that they have to face is the move away from people working for the same employer for years. Instead, more and more people are becoming self-employed to gain the freedom and control over their lives that they're unlikely to get from being employed. Okay, well, that's all I want to say, so let's open it up for discussion.
Okay. So
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
And then you've got, after that, another 10 minutes to move your answers over to your answer sheet in the real exam. Okay, I'll be back with the answers. 1 second. Okay, so let's check the answers. I need to go here. So the first answer is Hardy with an IE at the end. Then it was 19, Whitestone Road, Bradfield, and then GT8 2LC, which is what we had here. Then hairdresser was her occupation. She said usually, over here she said I usually go for shopping, but this time I was going to the dentist. Remember, just to double check, first of all, that it's one word, which is the mistake I made, and then obviously that it fits in with the rest of the sentence. So dentist or dentists with the apostrophe S. Then better lighting, which is correct. Then more frequent trains for number 7, which is correct. and then having safe parking spaces for bicycles, and then a shower at work because she gets hot and sweaty, and then training for dealing with busy roads. Okay, so you have training, not necessarily, you have training on something. Doesn't mean that they were on busy roads when she did training, although that might be possible as well. Okay, now number 11, the correct answer is A. They said that the idea came from you, and but the competition was held by the city council, and the money came from SWRDC. Okay, then what was unusual about it was C, its method of water treatment. The architecture was not unusual because it blended in with the rest of the town area. Now, question 13, it was C as well. It's the size of the facilities. They were concerned about the room. They used the word room there. And 14 was A. It was going to be a competition for what? I don't think they used the word statue. I think they used the word sculpture, perhaps. I can't really exactly remember what it is that they said, but it certainly wasn't statue. But you should know what that is at this level. Now let's have a look if I got this right. I'm not entirely sure. Let's have a look. 15 was E, that was the local animals of Asia, not the local animals of the UK. And then F was Antarctica, talking about mountains, good. Then D was South America, that was the jewels. El Dorado, famous for its jewels. H, space travel for North America, rocket ships, etc. 19 was A, that was the ancient forts and castles, fortifications they used in the text itself. And 20B, it was Africa, and that was the waterways, the rivers of Africa, the Nile, the Orange, for example. Okay, now let's have a look at 22 and 21 and 22. There had to be 2. B and C is correct. They did say that his mother read to him. He never liked going hunting with his father, and then I think the boy said he liked camping, and she corrected him and said no, it's actually climbing he enjoyed, or the other way around. But it was a bit of a tricky one. I would have highlighted one and then got very angry and have to cross that out and go to B. Now, 2 reasons for him going to the island. This is what I missed, so let's see. B and E. Yeah, I thought so. So B was correct. It wasn't experiencing an isolated place, but I was fiddling about with B and C here, which is something I should have just I remembered to change later on and go straight into here. Don't worry about rubbing something out or crossing out unless you're likely to forget it. Just go straight on to the next. You don't have even a few seconds to mess about with this sort of thing. So the correct answer is not C, it was E. The reason why it's not C, I thought it could have been, was because that's what wasn't a reason to go to the island in the first place. That came later, I think, the idea of a new theory. He just wanted to get himself ready, so that would explain. I was thinking about E, but anyway. Now let's have a look at the later life of Thor. It was a bit tricky as well. So 25 was A. The eastern countries were far away, they mentioned. 26 was C, which was to test a new theory. That's right. There was some discussion. Was it because he wanted to test himself? But they had to agree, and that was the key here, that they both agree with the main reason. Then 27, it was a C, authentic and local construction materials. They also used materials that would have been available to them at the time. So no metal or no power tools, for example. 28, why did he go to Easter Island to build a stone statue? Yes, that's correct. So he wanted to speak to the locals, yes, but then speak to them about these stone statues and then try and recreate one themselves. And then 29 was B. His methods were entirely different, so more practical methods that whereas before it was a lot more theoretical. And then 30A, yes, the style was old-fashioned, I think the words they used there, so out of date. Then only one word here. Let's see, the first would have been competition, which is good. Large global, I said multinational when I first thought about it, but it's similar meaning. Rising demand in certain countries, that's fine. Customers, 34, so discussions with customers before they make decisions, which was never the case before. This one almost threw me, led to more pollution. Obviously that doesn't make sense. Yeah, it just didn't sound right. I don't know why, because I suppose which may lead to more pollution. Anyway, regulation sound is the correct answer, and it just sounded better there. Yeah, that would lead to less pollution if there were environmental concerns, and if the business was concerned about it, they would try to reduce pollution. So that's why more regulation was better here. Then particular project, they use the word special project or individual project. And then flexible, hours that are flexible, you can choose when you come in and when you leave. And then leadership, a good leadership, provide good leadership, good skills. I think you could have, he also said skills, but need for business to provide good skills. Skills wouldn't have worked, so good leadership, that's a collocation that would work better. So provide leadership is a collocation. Provide good skills doesn't fit. And then women taking on senior roles or higher management roles, I think they said. And the last one was self-employed, so yeah. More and more self-employed workers. Okay, I hope that was useful for you, and if you have any questions, just leave them down in the comment section below. Thank you.